Hi, welcome to the bathtub. Tis I, the old masturbator, Scott Bradfield, and this is Reading Great Books in the Bathtub. You all know that. And it's brought to you by Three Paragraphs in the Life of Bob Johnson. If it's not three paragraphs, it's not Bob Johnson. You can get it wherever it's sold. You can get this book anywhere this book is sold. Basically, you buy them from me or you get them on Amazon. Try not to get them from Amazon, and you can see them for free. I put them on Substack. I take a few breaks. We're in the middle of a 3-day break at the moment at Substack, but we do one of these every morning. It's 3-paragraph short stories. Today, My Work Is Not Yet Done by Thomas Ligotti. Thomas Ligotti. It's festooned with not notes, but passages I like to read, which I'm not going to read all of those, but passages I thought were pretty funny. And most of you, I came late to the party of Thomas Ligotti. I didn't start reading him until about 11 years ago. I did a review for The Guardian about a 2-volume reissue of his first 2 books from Penguin, and really liked it. It was very weird. He's a very different writer, as anyone knows who's read him. This is the most recent. I think this is the last book of new stories he published commercially. I think he's been publishing in dribs and drabs and has gone very quiet in the past few years. This one was originally published in 2002 by Mythos Books. It was reprinted in commercial about 2009 by Virgin Books in the UK. It's basically 3 stories. It's a long story called My Work Is Not Yet Done. Just the title, when you think about Ligotti, his stuff is filled with irony and dark irony. And My Work Is Not Yet Done is a pretty funny title. And then there's 2 shorter stories. They're all set in kind of corporate nightmare worlds. The world where so many Americans work, which is working in some corporation with a bunch of idiots, and the bosses are all idiots, and you're all doing nothing for money. It's all like The Office. It's kind of like a horror version of The Office. And there's two short stories that go with it. Lucky's barking because the mailman has the presumption of coming to deliver mail. She doesn't like that. She doesn't like neighbors living in other houses. Lucky. Anyway, I'm not going to talk too much. I'm not going to describe too much about it so much as I enjoy Ligotti. I just read some critics saying he overwrites, or he writes overly ornate sentences. He doesn't write that way at all. He has a kind of a metaphoric or almost allegorical texture to his stories. They're all about. I really hate to be reductive, but they're all about the stupidity and the futile stupidity and the hilarious futile stupidity of being alive. That's really, I hate to put it that way. I wouldn't bring Grandma and the kids into Ligotti. I wouldn't introduce him to Ligotti. At the same time, he has about as dark a vision of the world as I can think, and life itself is dark. He's known as you all know this better than me, an antinatalist. He doesn't believe that life is worth living. Being born is like the worst thing that can happen to you, and being alive and knowing you're basically going to die. So anyway, that's a real simplistic version. He's got a book of philosophy, antinatalist philosophy, called The Conspiracy Against the Human Race. I think the basic premise of a lot of his stuff is that the human race is designed to make people think life is worth living. All you're going to do is die, and when you're gone, there's nothing. It's like you were never there. So anyway, I don't want to go too much into that, because I think his fiction is a lot more than that. I think his fiction is very funny. It's very dark. It's very involving. It is horror fiction, so horrible things happen to people, but I don't find it really disturbing horror fiction. I can't watch horror movies, as I've told you a million times. But his basic vision of the world is pretty comic. He's a very funny writer, I think. Anyway, the first long story in here is called My Work Is Not Yet Done. It's about a guy working in a nightmarish corporation, and he works in a team. They always call them teams. All the language of corporate life is just made hilarious in this book. And of course, they work in teams, and they're all they're making profits, or they're minimizing strategies, or they're re-strategizing assets. They're doing all that bullshit that people do in corporations. And it's basically working. I think he works with a bunch of people. They all have ridiculous names like Barry, Harry, Carrie, Mary, Jerry, Derry. There's like 7 dwarves, he calls them. And then there's a guy named Richard. The central character is a guy named Dominio. I'm going to tell you a few quick things about him. Again, there's often this kind of metaphor comedy running through his stuff. Dominio becomes known as Domino by the other people. And when people start getting killed, there's a detective white and a detective black, like the dominoes have white and black on them. And the notion that everything is kind of black or white in this world of death and horror and life is played through it. And the notion that this central character, Domino, who he's basically some corporate pencil pusher who wants to bring up some idea at a meeting and get them to re-strategize their assets somehow or whatever the heck they're going to do. And, of course, all the other people hate him for coming up with a good idea. And there's nothing positive about this world at all. It's just nothing but hypocrisy and ridiculousness. And then he goes into what could be only called some dark zone, which is either not just a nightmare of his or it's death. And he's kind of coming in and out of it, getting revenge on these people. There's lots of Ligottian imagery. The notion of mannequins is very big in Ligotti. He does lots of stories of mannequins because basically that's how he looks at human bodies. We're just these mannequins. There's nothing in us that means anything. Everything about human identity is all fabrication in Ligotti, and a comic fabrication. And I'll just read it, and I think that's enough. I think the story was really good. I like the other two stories a lot. The first one, the long kind of short novel, My Work Is Not Yet Done, is great. That's one of the best things he's ever written. And I just want to read a few passages that I like that might give you a good sense of. This is a very funny passage to me. It's on page 31. And he's talking about basically the pointlessness of working or being alive. And again, my work is not yet done is I'm just still alive. Basically, all life is a work. It's work and it's lying to yourself. While the aforementioned changes within the company were news to me, and big news at that, none of it seemed to have the least force of reality behind it. There's no reality in this world. This was more or less the case with all occasions at the moment, within that particular working world, and perhaps all others. So often there would be the promise of either some cataclysm or some bright new age on the horizon, but whatever it was, however it might seem to the imagination, it would unfailingly come and go like a thunderstorm through which one had slept, leaving a few puddles and some small tree branches scattered upon the ground as the only evidence that anything at all had happened. Every milestone in the history of the company, right? Even when forecast with heaps of hoopla, was ultimately played out according to some secret timeline of geologic tedium, so that it was drained of all interest and drama well before it took place, and afterward went all but unnoticed. And the days rolled by, and one grew older, and none of it seemed to possess the least import or substance. Finally, looking back from the deathbed of your entire life in the working world, you would be left exclaiming, "What was that all about?" In this sense, the world of the company mirrored the world itself, which sometimes managed to stage a rousing first act, and perhaps even provide a few engaging scenes of a second, before devolving into a playwright's nightmare, wherein the actors either butchered their lines or entirely forgot them, scenery collapsed, props misfired, and most of the audience left the theater during intermission. I think it's one of the funniest things you ever wrote. The idea that life starts off really good, has some interesting second acts, and then just completely falls apart. As you get older, you might get that joke. I don't know. Anyway, let me see. There's a couple more passages I could, this is just real quick. 43. He's talking about market strategies for this new idea he brings to the company. This market strategy would then go on until one day, among the worldwide ruins of derelict factories and warehouses and office buildings, there stood only a single shining, windowless structure with no entrance and no exit. Inside will be only a dense network of computers calculating profits. Outside will be tribes of savage vagrants with no comprehension of the nature or purpose of the shining, windowless structure. Perhaps they will worship it as a god. Perhaps they will try to destroy it, their primitive armory proving wholly ineffectual against the smooth and impervious walls of the structure upon which not even a scratch can be inflicted. It's kind of hard to look at corporate worlds without thinking that they just are these big death machines. They just create death machines, really. Whatever you're, antinatalist or pronatalist or whatever the heck you are. I'm not going to read any more passages. I'm a big fan of Ligotti. There's so much fun stuff in him. He's I think if you don't laugh, if you don't find him funny, I wouldn't read him in some ways. but he is a very funny writer and a very dark writer. So Thomas Ligotti, my work is not yet done. No, it's not yet done, Ligotti. Try to do some more stories for us. We've been quiet for a while, and that's it. We're going to do a few of these fairly quickly today, especially since I finally got the light. It's not my angelic glow, but it's okay. Okay, stay safe.